What's going on, guys? Matias Weilmann, Ben Carlton, Second Floor Sports. We are recording this Thursday at 4 p.m.
4:03, if you want to be
4:03, sorry.
precise.
Yesterday, we got a chance to interview Rob Parker from Fox Sports Radio. He appears on FS1. That man does everything.
It's remarkable, honestly. When we were talking to him before the show about like what he wanted us to like promote of his, take your pick. I pick any one of like the 12 different things he does. It's really remarkable.
When you have the clout level that he's just like, yeah, I can't mention it. I'm just gonna go to on my website and check everything out.
Literally.
But we actually got to work with Rob together when we were interns out in Fox Sports Radio and out in LA. If you are watching this on YouTube, it's coming up right after this. If you're listening to us on Spotify, it's coming right up. And if not, I don't know where else you're listening to us on. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. All righty, Second Floor Sports, Matias Weilmann, Ben Carlton, joined by Rob Parker, who's a host of The Odd Couple on Fox Sports Radio. You can listen to that every day, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. He's a contributor on Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. He's a TV anchor and analyst. He's been doing this for years now, since before we were alive. And this man does not sleep because he does everything. He's a Hall of Fame voter. He has his own podcast you can listen to everywhere, host of Inside the Rob Parker podcast, and you can check out some of his books on getrob.com. Rob, how you doing today? And thank you so much for coming on.
Matias and Ben, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Matias, that beard, you didn't have that when you were an intern at Fox Sports Radio, but very nice.
I had it.
You're just making this man's head just blowing him up.
I will admit it wasn't as nice.
I don't remember it being that thick or dark. Did you have a beard?
I've been on the.
He definitely had a beard.
Years,
I haven't seen this man clean shaven in probably 3.5 years, but I don't think it was that clean.
You know what? I haven't seen him in a minute, so the beard just jumps out. Okay.
Right.
Well, we got to see each other last summer. So Ben and I actually know Rob because we both interned at Fox Sports Radio. Now, it was last year.
Yeah.
About a year ago at this point, a little more. That's where I met Rob, and then Rob is from New York too. Obviously, all three of us are from New York, so we got to meet when he came back. Rob, let's just get right into it. Like we touched upon before, you write, you're a podcast host, you're on TV, and obviously you're on radio. How have things been different the last couple of months with COVID?
It's different from the standpoint. First, we didn't have any games to talk about, and yet Chris and I had to put on a 3-hour radio show every day. So it was a lot without doing phony lists or making up stuff to talk about. And that was the thing that we would not do. And then, of course, the Jordan documentary helped. So we were talking about that a lot. And there were other issues that were coming up. NFL had free agency. But it's been different from the standpoint that I haven't seen Chris in 5 months. I mean,
wow.
We do the show separately. He's at his house in New Jersey, and I'm in my apartment in LA. So it is different. The quality isn't lost because it's so good you can't even tell. Unless we tell you, we're really not in the same room. You really can't tell. But it's different. It's different for chemistry standpoint when somebody's right next. That's been different. Being on the Herd or Undisputed from my apartment again, totally different. And even writing for Deadspin, I can't get out to cover things like I used to or talk to people. So it's more phone calls or, writing or using quotes that, I've seen already that already put out there. So it's a little different. But it's like anything. You have to adjust, and that's what I've been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've all definitely been in a period of adjustment. I mean, the whole world has. I don't think I'm making any hot takes there, but the good news is we do actually have some games to break down now. I mean, just as a sports fan, these last couple of weeks have been really fun just because you turn on the TV at 1:00 and you can watch any league you want for the rest of the day. We'll start with a little baseball. So did you see the whole Yankees-Rays incident at the end of the game yesterday?
I did.
Quick reaction there. What did you think of the whole? And did you think Chapman was throwing at Brousseau's head?
I wouldn't believe that Chapman's trying to throw at anybody's head. I think those days are long gone. So whether it came close or you know what I mean, but I don't think that's the real intent. The players don't do that anymore. These guys make so much money, their careers. That used to be something that was in baseball in the 40s and 50s, even the 60s. You know what I mean? But not really since then. But those two teams are trying to slug it out. the Rays are still trying to get there. The Yankees are trying to hang on and keep playing well despite all the injuries. The Yankees have had so many injuries the last 3 years. It's unbelievable. And yet they still keep winning because they're so deep. So it's kind of surprising. But this tit for tat with these two teams go back for a couple of years now.
I mean, I've been seeing a lot of noise on Twitter about Yankees-Rays kind of being the stopgap for the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. I mean, personally, I think that's pretty accurate with the way the Red Sox are just in the cellar this year rebuilding. What do you think?
Yeah, the Yankees-Red Sox is dead officially. I think the Yankees have beaten them 9 or 10 times in a row. Just unheard of. It's like to have a rivalry, the other team has to win once in a while. It's like the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry in football. That's dead. Ohio State owns Michigan, and to have a real rivalry, the other guy's got to win once in a while to make you feel a certain kind of way. And I think right now, the Yankees and Red Sox are dead.
So yeah, that's the wonderful thing about rivalry, right? Because it could be dead for a couple of years, and then you think the Red Sox are good next year, and it's alive and well if they're actually competing against each other. Kevin Cash actually said, kind of insinuated he's going to retaliate. You think the Rays are going to retaliate tonight?
I think so, because it'll be heavy fines, especially when you go out and make a statement like that. You know what I mean? You put yourself, the commissioners on alert, the umpires are on alert, and I believe if they do throw out a Yankee tonight, I'm not saying down the road, but tonight, I do believe that Cash will be suspended and there'll be a heavy fine, and it'll be and the player will be suspended. It'll be an incident.
It's pretty tough.
I'm almost saying I do not expect to see it tonight.
So we'll go to another hot team because the Rays have been fantastic this season, but the Padres have been a big surprise. I think some people expected they could be good, but most people expect them to be about a year out. They just swung Mike Clevenger. It was probably the biggest deal in the deadline with Lance Lynn not being moved.
Probably, definitely.
It is. Okay. So
pick up an ace like that is unbelievable.
They're the hot team right now, right? You talk about Slam Diego. Everyone's hopping aboard the bandwagon. How do you feel about their deadline deals, and how do you think about their chances? Like, how high is their ceiling?
I think their ceiling is pretty high. What's incredible is when you think about Slam Diego does fit because they actually have scored more runs than the Dodgers. And you know how potent that lineup is. Think about that. And the Dodgers have hitters up and down the lineup. They hit a National League record 57 home runs in the month of August. And yet the Padres still have scored more runs and lead in like OPS and slugging. The numbers are real. Manny Machado's having a great year. Of course, Fernando Tatis Jr., what a stud. His first 100 games are better than Mike Trout's first 100 games. What does that say? And everybody says Mike Trout will wind up being the greatest player ever. And Tatis has better numbers through the first 100 in the big leagues. So they're real. They got some pitching. Clevenger, I don't believe it was just the COVID thing that got him out of Cleveland. There must have been other incidents that they just had enough, and that was the final straw. Because
and Cleveland's also got so much pitching. I mean, if they're looking to deal from one of their resources, they've got so many top-tier arms, and they're so good at developing young arms. It's like they can look at a guy like Mike Clevenger and say, hey, we can turn him into a six-player return. I mean, I really liked the deal for the Indians.
The Indians also hate winning, so there's that too.
Well, the other thing too is, and I'm with you, is it's easy for the Indians to just give away a star ace pitcher, but they haven't won jack in about 50 years. So it's, you can say, oh yeah, they can just give away anybody. There had to be more behind the scenes for them to move a guy like that. You don't develop a guy to get rid of a guy like that. He was a stud. He is a stud, and it makes the Padres a legit threat when you add them to their rotation and the lineup and everything else they have. So watch out, Padres.
I mean, you touched on the Dodgers. They were them and the Yankees were the preseason World Series favorites, like even before and after the whole COVID stoppage. I mean, the Dodgers have been so good, like there almost aren't even stories about them. Like they're the best team in baseball. They've probably got the deepest roster in baseball. The Padres are the hot team right now. They're the one getting the buzz. But do you think the Dodgers are still the team to beat?
I picked the Dodgers and Yankees to be in the World Series. I'm sticking to my pick. Ultimately, both are – the rosters are good. Same thing with the Yankees. People can if they don't win the division or whatever, that doesn't mean that they still can't make the playoff run if they get everybody back and healthy come playoffs, which starts in about, a month or so, right? So they got time to get those guys back. We saw when they had their full squad the first 10 or 12 games and they were 11-1 or whatever it was, 10-2. They have a good team. They got a lot of boppers. Same with the Dodgers. But for the Dodgers, it means a lot more. I know the Yankees haven't won since 2009.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers haven't won since 1988. And they need to win. Like getting to the World Series or getting to the playoffs again, or winning another division doesn't mean anything in LA. People want to see them win a World Series.
So we're going to flip scripts a little bit here. We're going to move over to the NBA. You've been covering the NBA for 20, 30 years at this point?
Since 1987. Don't shortchange me.
Got us topped by a good 11 years before we were even born.
1980, ridiculous. I mean, in those days, we used to fly with the players because the players didn't have private planes. They flew commercial. So it wouldn't be like weird that I'm on a flight, say when I was covering the Nets or the Knicks back then in the late 80s, that I would be on a plane and I would be sitting next to Sam Bowie, who was a center for the Nets. Me and Sam would sit next to each other, flying to the next game. I mean, that's what it was. And we had different relationships with players back then.
Yeah.
Still was professional and we did our jobs, but it's not as pretentious as it is today.
Off the top of your head, like craziest like in-flight story you have or crazy story you have of just like being that close with players?
At least that you'd be willing to share it with us.
Yeah, that too.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing was I can remember like guys who got drafted, high draft choices. Like Dennis Hobson was a high draft choice, a lottery pick for the Nets. And he had, the big contract or whatever. But when we got to the plane, he couldn't sit in first class because back then, as part of the collective bargaining agreement, it went by seniority. Mm-hmm. So you had guys who were 10, 12-year journeymen who sat in first class, and the stars had to sit in coach. So once there was a little, brouhaha about who's sitting in first class, and the star players who were the young guys got schooled and were taught, no, you have to sit in the back. These go to the veteran players. And I remember writing about the incident or whatever, and it became like a big story.
That's so funny. I mean, it's obviously we're never going to have anything like that. Flipping back to the NBA, you had spoken about this on your show and on your Twitter. The boycotts that went on, it created a lot of movement. We've seen a lot of responses by the owners. They've opened up their arenas for voting. I mean, what has been your kind of reaction and your thoughts on first them not coming out to play and then just the changes that have occurred since then?
I love it all. I just think it fits. I mean, for the Bucks to be the team that led the boycott. Remember, Kenosha's in their backyard. They drive past it to go to practice, I think, or go to the games or whatever. So that's in their backyard. They should have taken the lead on that. I was proud to think that they were moved so much by what we all saw. And then athletes as a whole, look at the voices that they have now and the power. They understand that they can stop things and get things changed. Even the Bucks, people say, oh, it's just a one-day boycott. They came right back. Well, they also got on the phone with the Attorney General for Wisconsin, the Lieutenant Governor. They pushed the governor to take a look at some bills that were, on the table to be voted on and whatnot. And that's what I'm talking about. Not just making a statement, but some action behind it. And then the rest of the world and the rest of the leagues to join in. That's powerful, the NBA. Baseball's only 8 or 9% black. Baseball joined in. The NHL is not black at all, not black American, black Canadian, but they stopped their games. The WNBA, MLS. Think about NASCAR and what they did by banning the Confederate flag. They don't have black fans. I'm not saying that they don't have any, but they're
not many.
Right, not many, and they're going against their base. Do you know what I mean? They probably lost fans who said, I'm never coming back, because they took away my right to bring in a Confederate flag, which was a part of NASCAR for as long as I can remember and seeing those flags. I never felt comfortable, but I saw them in the South. at these events. And for them to say, well, if we lose you, we lose you. We're going to do the right thing. Our organization is going to be about what's right, what's fair. And I love it. I think everybody's joined in. And for the guys who still are pushing back on, I don't want to hear about that. I want to go to sports to get away from social stuff or whatever. Hello, is this on? There's nowhere for you to hide. So there's no sport where you can go and try to hide from it. It's a part of our lives, and it's a part of sports, and it's always been. I want to give everybody a history lesson. In 1993, the NFL took away the Super Bowl from the state of Arizona. You know why? Because they didn't vote to have the Martin Luther King holiday a paid holiday. The NFL showed up, and they said, as long as you don't have the Martin Luther King holiday as a paid holiday, because it had become a national holiday, but states could decide whether it was paid or not. If you don't adopt this, you'll never get another Super Bowl. That's not football. That's social, right? So the NFL was involved in that in 1993. Guess what? The next year, it was put on a ballot again to vote for, and the people of Arizona voted to be a paid holiday.
And
so,
it's unfortunate that it's money that's going to make people make these decisions. But at the very least, it's like, all right, well, you make the decision, but then you can move from there to try to educate and get people to see it from a better perspective.
Yeah, the song by Cyndi Lauper, "Money Changes Everything."
Mm-hmm.
That's a real song.
Money talks, man. Money talks.
Money changes everything, and people react. Look at Daniel Snyder in Washington, who said that it wouldn't happen. He would never change the name, and he said, right, under his watch. And what happened? When those advertisers said they were going to pull their money from the franchise, all of a sudden, overnight, everything changed.
Yeah.
The name was gone. They're going to rename the team. They now have the first black team president in NFL history. You know what I mean? They've made changes, and it's amazing. It might take money, but sometimes you force people into looking at it in a different way.
We've got a couple minutes left here. I can't have you on without getting some of your NBA thoughts. We had Game 7 between the Nuggets and the Jazz last night. Another Game 7 coming up tonight between the Rockets and the Thunder. Let's start with the Nuggets-Jazz. What was your reaction to the end of the game last night and just the series as a whole?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I thought Utah was going to win, and Donovan Mitchell, of course, turned the ball over, coming down with the potential game winner. And I don't know. I mean, they took a shot, it rimmed out. They had a chance to win it, but they were down big. They fought all the way back. They just couldn't finish it off. So it was disappointing. And Denver's a good team, but Jamal Murray had a bad night, and it happens. A lot of guys, like, they play well, and then you get to that Game 7, and then it just doesn't work out. But luckily, they were able to hold on and win.
Yeah, I mean, the way that him and Donovan Mitchell were scoring, you kind of expected them to come out and trap. It was crazy how low scoring that game was. I want to talk about
– that was a game from the 90s.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Rockets Thunder tonight. Who you got?
I got Thunder.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I just – the Rockets, this might be the end of that whole thing with Mike D'Antoni, their GM. If they lose in the first round, I don't know. I mean, it just seemed weird that they had that game and they just couldn't, do the right things at the end. And OKC, they should have been extinguished a long time ago when you think about that team. So if they're in a Game 7, gives me a lot more confidence about them than the Rockets.
And last question for you here, Rob. Again, thank you so much for coming on to Second Floor Sports with us today.
Appreciate it.
Are you worried if you're the Clippers heading into round 2? I mean, they got a real scare from Dallas.
Nah, I'm not worried at all. I mean, when you say they got a real scare, everybody talks about Porzingis not playing or whatever. Patrick Beverley didn't play. Paul George wasn't Paul George for most of that series, right, for the first spot. So if they play like they're capable, we've seen them, and they're all together, I think they're a tough out. I don't think he could beat them 4 times. If Paul George just played, he played horrid, right?
Yeah.
And they won the series, right? But if he plays regular, and Kawhi Leonard's been outstanding, and you add Patrick Beverley, who's just not that he's a big scorer or anything, but he's the glue to that team. He's a big part of that team.
Absolutely.
and they rested him basically because they felt like they could win without him, and they'll be ready for him. So I'm not saying it's a 4-game sweep or anything, but I do expect the Clippers to win, and I've picked the Clippers before the season started to win the championship, and I'm sticking with it.
I'm on the same page as you there, Rob. I got the Clippers winning it all this year. They're just too deep, in my opinion. They've got Kawhi Leonard, best playoff performer in the league, and they run 8 or 9 deep, and their second unit could be like a starting 5 for a couple teams in this league.
Yeah, probably
No
a
doubt.
lottery team, but
Yeah, but also it's like pick your poison. You know, like they got 4 guys who could close out the game at the end. Most teams don't have that.
Yeah.
Rob, before I let you go, I couldn't not do this. I got my Spurs jersey on. I got my Patriots mug here just to kind of send you for a little twist as we let you go.
I just threw up in my mouth twice.
Rob Parker, host of The Odd Couple on Fox Sports Radio. You can listen to him every weekday, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. You can catch him on Undisputed with Skip and Shin, and he's a Deadspin writer, MLB Hall of Fame voter, and you can listen to his podcast, which is one of my favorite MLB podcasts, Inside the Rob Parker, and buy some of his books, GetRob.com. Rob, a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Ben, thank you guys, man. That was a lot of fun. We'll do it again. All right.
Absolutely. I'll hold you to that.
Invite me back. Don't say, all right, we're done with Rob. Make sure you invite me back.
We'll make sure you're back on, Rob. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Everyone watching on our Instagram Live, thanks for tuning in. If you are watching us on YouTube, and we're posting the videos after, or if you're listening to us on Spotify, thanks. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and, of course, follow us on Spotify just so we can get those numbers up.
Second Floor Sports, same as our show name, same as on our Instagram. Our Twitter's a little weird. It's at 2 Floor Sports. We're in
advanced negotiations.
Yeah, we've been in talks with the holder of at Second Floor Sports to
there was
acquire it.
Not to get that off topic before we even start the show.
I mean, it is right in our bio.
Yeah. So Twitter had announced, I feel like earlier this year, that it was going to get to a point where if you were certain like inactive and like you hadn't tweeted in X amount of years or whatever.
That was like a year at least ago. I think
they said that they were going to do it this year too. Like they were going to take your handle away. And I know that would help with our Twitter. And I know yours too, Ben. You're still Ben.
I've been at Ben. And honestly, that's not bad. Like I can live with Ben _Carlton1. I would love at Ben Carlton. And whoever at Ben Carlton is, to be fair, they haven't tweeted in a while. They are active though. Like they've liked stuff within the last month. I still think I deserve the handle personally, but I don't think they're going to get the boot anytime soon.
Yeah. See, I got lucky. I don't think there are too many people named Matias Weilmann in the world. There probably are. I mean, the name's very popular in South America. Apparently, it sounds Greek too. That's what people always tell me. And Weilmann is a.
Has Strat ever told you that?
No, he hasn't. But every time I meet people,
Greek resource.
It's interesting because like Argentinian Spanish is different than every other Spanish. It just you can tell that it sounds different. And so every time my dad, who obviously is from Argentina, was born there and grew up there, everyone always asks him if he's French. Which I get you don't know what accent it is, but it doesn't sound French at all.
It doesn't sound. I mean, to be fair, like I've heard your dad definitely has like a. If you haven't like ever spoken to your dad, he does have like a tough accent to pick up.
I have spoken to my dad, so
Okay.
All right. What were you saying?
Point being, your dad does have a tough accent to pick up. Like the first few times I had met him, I was like, I couldn't pick up his accent very well. Obviously, like once you get to know him, you figure it out. But
French is interesting. But anyway,
honestly, I don't know if I would go like Spanish off the bat. But
it's Spanish just sounds right.
Well, you would know.
Yeah, fair. All right. Again, Second Floor Sports.
Starts with the show.
Second Floor Sports, Matias Weilmann, Ben Carlton. Again, if you're catching us on Instagram Live, we have an interview with Rob Parker that we had yesterday. That was Wednesday at about noon.
Really,
a lot of awesome things.
Fun interview too. It's such an enjoyable guy to spend 20 minutes talking to.
I mean, I met. It's always like nervous kind of in one of your first big internships, networking with people and stuff. And the shift that Ben and I were mostly on, it was you come in, you work on your show, and then you just leave. And you usually leave a little early.
The thing that kind of caught me the most by surprise about Fox Sports Radio is like, it's not a big space at all.
Yeah, it's a basement.
There's the main studio. There's the editing room. There's Big Mike's office, obviously.
Big Mike, shout out.
And there's a kitchen. Like, there's not a lot. Yeah. It's not like you can like sit there and like hang out after your shift. Like, you're either.
I mean, you can. But
you can. But there's 3 seats in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like.
And half the people that work there, if they're not on air, like most of them they're part-time, so they have other jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Other jobs are just like it's not it's not a place you necessarily want to like. As much fun as we had there, it's not a place you want to like hang out afterward.
Yeah, I mean it's fair. You don't really want to hang out at work after. But the people that we got to interact with, a couple shout outs. Lead the Lap the Fourth.
Jonas Lap the Fourth.
Jonas Knox, Ryan Music, our producer.
You're forgetting literally like
John Ramos,
single most important figure there, who just followed the show Instagram. Did you see that?
What?
Ramos followed the Instagram.
Nice. I'm talking about like people that we didn't directly work with every time, but like we're super nice, always offering advice, always helping us out. And I approached our supervisor. I was like, hey, I want to go into play-by-play. Is there anyone here that I can talk to? And there's people that I can talk to about networking. And he was like, let me reach out to Rob Parker. I knew who Rob Parker was. I was like, like there's no way he's going to reach out to me. Guy met me like the next day and like was super nice. And, I met him in the city one time when he came back. He's from New York. Super nice guy. So definitely check out our interview. Of course, follow us on all of our social medias on Twitter, or at 2 Floor Sports. Instagram right here. It's Second Floor Sports.
We gotta get that handle.
Gotta get that handle. And then on YouTube, it's Second Floor Sports. So Ben,
let's get right into it.
We got a lot to talk about.
Tons and tons of actual basketball to talk about, but the number one item today,
Steve Nash
of the Brooklyn Nets, Steve Nash. What?
Like completely out of left field. Let's start with that, right? It's not.
I mean, like, I literally saw it and was like, was I just completely in the dark? And like,
no.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you have any clue that he was even being considered?
No, that's the thing, is that no one knew. I mean, Sean Marks and the rest of the Nets front office, Joe Tsai, who was big in this hiring, they did a great job of keeping this under the wraps, right? And this isn't the first time.
Which is so unheard of for like an NBA hire.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, you usually hear some rumblings, and it's not like this is the first time that an NBA player has gone right
short
to
of rumblings, just like rumors. Like there wasn't
one
report, there wasn't one like random like fan with a source type of tweet.
Yeah,
literally nothing. And then just saw on my phone Steve Nash hires. And that's
I mean, it was the report a couple days ago from Shams Charania was that Jacques Vaughn, who
actually went to high school with my stepbrother. Fun fact.
Okay.
Which honestly put in perspective, because like I'm so used to sidebar kind of, not thinking a topic crazy. Well, just obviously like a 50-something-year-old man. I don't know how old he is. He's bald and has been around for forever. Shams is like 4 years older than us.
Excuse me? He said he's 4 years older than us?
Not much. I don't know exactly, but he went to high school with my stepbrother, who's 25, turning 26 in December. Like,
I don't really like that.
It's weird. But anyways,
the report from Shams Charania a couple days ago was that Jacques Vaughn had a really successful interview with the Nets front office and with their ownership, and he was the favorite to be their coach.
And his name, it's been probably 2 or 3 off seasons where his name is always brought up for coaching vacancies. Like, you figured it was just a matter of time until someone pulled the trigger on it.
I mean, say what you want about, the Nets getting swept in the first round, but they played very well in the bubble. And I mean, it's easy to look at them and be like, oh, they got swept by the Raptors. First of all, the Raptors are a very good team, regardless of if they're down 2-0 to the Celtics.
They're going to get swept also, but we'll talk about that later.
They're not going to get swept. But anyway, I mean, Jacques Vaughn played really well with what he had. I mean, the Nets were in the first 2 games. They got blown out after that, but there was really nothing there. And my biggest takeaway from this,
also, of course, you got to remember the Nets were playing with their like B/C team. Like,
Raul Cabarrot was literally like their best scorer. The thing to remember here is that when you have players like Kyrie and KD coming back, this head coach hiring is not about X's and O's. This is X's and O's. This is not a tactician hiring. This is someone that has a good relationship with both of them and that can kind of keep everything under the wraps and control everyone, right? Because
But
John Vaughn's coming back.
With, like,
he's going to be
their
main head coach and their main assistant coach.
I get what you're saying about it not necessarily being like an X's and O's hire, but like you want to compete for a title. You want to become like relevant again beyond just kind of like memes and like pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing back 2 champions, 2 guys with rings, and KD and Kyrie.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so you hire a first-time head coach, like not just a first-time head coach, a guy who doesn't even have experience as an assistant. He was a player development coach in Golden State, a part-time player development coach.
He worked more front office.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what his duties were. I don't know what his day-to-day responsibilities were in Golden State.
I think he was like some sort of assistant coach with the Canadian national team, but it was literally for like a summer.
Do you think that had anything to do with it? Again, not to like discredit Steve Nash's game or his like IQ and his understanding of basketball. Like he's a Hall of Famer. One of my honestly like earliest favorite players that I can remember like watching and being like, wow, like this guy is sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the first thing that came to mind was like LeBron's first year back in Cleveland when they fired Blatt and brought in Ty Lue.
Mm-hmm.
And there was all this noise about like, oh, well, it doesn't, the X's and O's don't matter. Like they're just bringing in a guy that LeBron wants, make LeBron happy, and you'll be fine. It's LeBron James. But then the first year, they got like Ty Lue got out-coached bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, when you've got a LeBron, a KD, a Kyrie type of player, yeah, you don't need like a coach of the year guy at the bench. But like,
That'd be nice.
It'd be nice. But when you get deep into the playoffs, you need a coach who's been there. You need a coach who's seen it and who's got the experience. This is a hell of a leap by the Nets.
I mean, look, Ty Lue is an assistant now, and he's done a heck of a job away from the head coaching spot. I honestly think the Sixers' job is his to lose. I mean, he has the experience now, and he's had to coach someone like LeBron James, which is not easy. I mean, remember, LeBron James did not like being coached by Eric Spoelstra in his early Miami days.
Honestly, I know LeBron has said some things after the fact about how he like was kind of wrong about like what he thought about Spo initially. I would love like a sit-down interview between the two of them because everything hindsight's 20/20, but everything I've read about Spoelstra after the fact, this guy is one of the better coaches in the NBA today, and that seems on paper like exactly the type of guy LeBron would want because LeBron is so smart and is such a cerebral player, obviously on top of all his other skills. I guess you could just chalk it up to LeBron being so young when he was going to Miami.
I mean, he was in like that was prime LeBron right there, and it's hard when you're literally you're in Cleveland and your like next best option is like Mo Williams and Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Like you're kind of just used to not having anything. I mean, honestly, like I'm wearing this shirt. This is the 07 Spurs shirt, the championship shirt.
Wow.
The fact that LeBron made it there is unbelievable. Like going back to Ty Lue, like he had coaching experience. Like Steve Nash,
at the very least, yeah.
Steve Nash doesn't have anything. And look, it's not like this is the first time it's happened, right? It happened with Doc Rivers. It happened with Jason Kidd. It happened with Derek Fisher. But like we've seen with Jason Kidd and Derek Fisher, it's very hit or miss.
Yeah. I mean, like, and something else I think about too is like you got to put 3 other players on the court and fill out a roster beyond KD and Kyrie. Like you need those other guys to produce. Look, we'll talk about this later, but look at the Bucks right now. Yep. You've got your 1 and 2 in Giannis and Middleton, but one of the issues for the Bucks right now is they're not getting shit from anyone else. And like
I think
and Budenholzer is a very good NBA coach, and he's not getting the.
He is getting out coached in this series though. Playoff Bud is just not cutting it right now.
We'll get into the Bucks series in a minute. I think it's a mix of outcoached and just simply not getting the production that he was probably expecting from some of his bench guys and some of his guys outside of Giannis and Chris Middleton. You need. I don't like the hire. I think this is going to go down as a really colossal mistake by the Nets.
I don't either.
Especially considering you don't know what you're getting out of KD in terms of his return from an Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. Kyrie has not been healthy in 4 seasons? When was the last time Kyrie played a full season?
2017.
Even if he full season or not, you're probably going to rest him either way because he's had so many issues. Mm-hmm. And also, you're getting the brain of Kyrie as well as the athletic ability of the basketball player. And not that that's a bad thing. Like
Kyrie is a very smart player.
He's a very smart player. And I love how outspoken he is about social issues. Mm-hmm. But it's like you need not every guy on the team is going to appreciate that. And it is a bit – distraction is the wrong word because it's not like it's unnecessary, but it's something that I think you would rather have an experienced, seasoned head coach kind of dealing with and helping to strike that line between like –
that's why I think Nash got hired in part, because it's not like they completely took Jacques Vaughn on. And I will say this, that man did a hell of a job coming in and coaching the Nets. And the fact that he didn't get the head coaching role after, and I get it, he is being compensated very well as an assistant coach.
Highest paid, right?
What?
Highest paid assistant.
Yeah, highest paid assistant coach. And he's going to have his hands in a lot of things. And you got to think he already has a great relationship with the players that are there. But do you have any
reason to believe that's actually like true?
What?
That he's got like you said, a great relationship with the players already there.
Well, look, I mean, regardless of the job he did, if the players don't like him and they didn't think that he did a good job, they wouldn't have brought him back. I mean, they brought him back as their top assistant coach, and they have shown at least that they are putting a lot of emphasis and that they do value having him there. However, the fact that he didn't get the head coaching job is kind of a slap in the face. You can't not think of like
I've got to imagine Steve Nash must have blown them away in the interview.
And you can already see people talk about how LeBron influences the head coach selection and all this and all that. I think that's just stupid because because I think that it's stupid if it's only LeBron. Every superstar obviously wants to play with the head coach that he likes. You're already seeing this with KD. The only reason that there were, connections with the Spurs, there were a couple reasons. One, that Steve Marks, well, he was, he's part of the Spurs kind of tree, and he has a good connection with Pop. But also KD has liked Pop for a while, and he's wanted to play under Pop for a while, to which I'll say KD should have just come to the Spurs.
Can you
imagine?
I'm not even.
But superstars choose their head coaches. That much has been true.
The NBA is a superstar
decade.
league. We know that.
Yeah, that much has been true for the last decade. And KD likes Steve Nash. They have a good relationship. That played a huge part in him coming in, which is why I'm saying Steve Nash. The main reason I think he got hired is because of that good relationship and the fact that I mean,
it's got to be. He didn't get hired because of his coaching experience.
That's for damn sure. But, I don't know. Maybe the Clippers talked to Doc Rivers before and they were like, wow, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. Maybe Steve Nash had no idea what he was talking about. It's crazy. It's hard to break down because it's out of left field. And I was listening to the local.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know what to make of it at this point. Like we have
no one does.
I haven't seen a single in the next couple days. Did they?
Saw that? Yeah. Steve Nash tried to get Dirk to join his staff, and Dirk said he's not ready to come back yet.
Huh. Where did you see that?
I got a Bleacher Report notification.
I must have missed that. Wow.
I mean, this news broke
what
8 hours ago, maybe.
What I was gonna say, and I'm just like trying to wrap my head around a Steve Nash, Dirk Nowitzki coaching combo. That'd be really funny. Like literally two of my earliest favorite players. That'd be really interesting.
Things are gonna get weird over the next couple.
I'm really curious to see what happens, or not what happens. I'm really curious to see like who comes out with the first article, like breaking down the whole interview process and like what happened, like who reached out to who. I saw one thing that Nash had been like interested in coaching for a couple years now. Well, there's a big difference between interested in coaching and becoming the first-year head coach for a team that has every right to believe they've got a shot at a title next season.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough because you look at it and you're like, absolutely, they have a shot. But then you got to remember, KD's coming off a torn Achilles in what was probably a very uneven rehab. You don't know what Kyrie's
uneven rehab, but albeit he's got more time than anyone to get back on the court.
That's true. This is obviously a playoff team, and any team that has KD automatically is a contender, but we also have to wait and see what they come out with, right? And then the most interesting thing in Brooklyn this summer is going to be what they do with Karis LeVert.
Well, I was just going to get into that. We've spent the first 20 minutes talking about not even actual basketball, so we should probably move on here soon. But I mean, I was reading an article today. It was like, it was part of it was just like a roundtable type of thing. It was like basically the question asked was, is Karis LeVert the third star, or is he the guy you use to get the third star? What do you think?
I mean, you have to evaluate at the end of the day how they fit with Kyrie and KD, right? I mean, if there's anything we've seen from the Bucks series is that you can never have too many people that can make their own offense, right?
No, absolutely.
Now, it comes with the caveat that when you're playing with KD, who, spent a lot of time with Russell Westbrook, who wasn't giving up the ball a lot of times, kind of turned out pretty rough. A reason that KD probably left. It's all about fit too, but I mean, Karis LeVert shoots well off the dribble. He shoots well from the catch. I mean,
Karis LeVert was probably the breakout player of the.
Yeah.
Other than T.J. Warren, LeVert was probably the breakout player of the bubble.
I don't know if he was the breakout player of the bubble.
Okay, breakout's the wrong word, but in terms of like, got pushed right into the heat and balled out.
Yeah, he showed up.
He literally carried the team.
Yeah, he was a shot away.
Definitely not the right. I don't know what exactly the right word would have been, but Karis LeVert showed up in the bubble playing with the C team and balled like unquestionably.
And they won like 7-2 or something like that.
I honestly don't remember, but
anyway, let's get to.
I think LeVert is your third star. Is my point. I think you keep LeVert around.
I think he's your third star as of right now, unless someone like Bradley Beal becomes available.
I guess, yeah.
You don't know.
I think honestly, I'd have to think more about it. But I think Beal is probably the only guy I would want to move LeVert for. Obviously, it'd have to be LeVert and I don't know what the package would be. The Nets don't have a ton of depth.
Yeah,
I'm picks and I don't want to speculate. I'm not the trade machine. I don't want to speculate like crazy here. But if I'm the Nets, I keep LeVert around for the third.
I at least try it out. If he gets along with KD and with Kyrie and
he was just putting up 24 and 6 or something.
Right, he was putting up 24 and 6, but without those guys. Like if that fits,
putting up 24 and 6 as the lead. There's Karis LeVert and then the rest of the Nets in the bubble. Yeah. He was getting all of the defensive attention. Everyone knew he was their only bucket. And he was still putting up remarkable numbers.
Yeah. Shout out Luau Cabarro as well.
That's your boy, really.
I mean, guy had a nice bubble. Him and Tyler Johnson played pretty well. Now, Tyler Johnson.
I thought Tyler Johnson was going to go to the Lakers. We talked about that a few.
That would have been a good move for him. We'll get to the Lakers in a bit, but before we do that, we got to talk about what happened at the end of that Houston OKC game.
Oh my God!
Before we start talking about the actual game, I'll say it so our listeners and viewers know. I started the first game late, right? So I started the Bucks Heat game late. So I had my phone aside, and I will say, it was nice to just be able to watch basketball without going on NBA Twitter and all those things. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of missed it too. It's fun.
I try not to be on my phone too much for literally a game 7. Mm-hmm. I try not to be on my phone either way. It is fun.
Commercials,
commercials. I'm like, what's happening? What are people saying? What's going on? Yeah, exactly. It's a habit, honestly.
And it was an article we talked about. I mentioned the last episode we had. I'll talk about it a little bit when we get to the Heat series. Writer's name is Nekias Duncan. Just got a full-time job. Guy is fantastic, and he was just putting out everything that the Heat need to do to beat the Bucks, and a lot of those points I'm going to bring up later.
Yeah.
But I mean, being able to watch the game, and I like to think that I can watch basketball and I can break down what they ran and all this and all that. But when you're listening to someone,
when you say you can break down, do you mean anything other than floppy or?
No, I mean, I can see okay, they ran an off-ball screen into the corner. Come on, give me some credit. Give me some credit, dude. But I mean, Nekias has been watching.
Didn't I tell you what floppy was? What? 2 years? Didn't I tell you what floppy was when we were playing 2K one time?
I think everyone knows what floppy is.
I could have sworn
that was my first word. Anyway, he's a Heat fan. He writes for the Heat. And to be able to watch the Heat games and then just go back and see what he's posting about and all these things, I'm like, damn, he's right. And he had a great article. We'll link it to it on our Twitter after. But I honestly missed going on NBA Twitter during it. But
all right, well, let's talk to basketball.
Yeah. We get to Houston OKC. We're getting to the last 5 minutes.
Full disclosure, I was honestly kind of expecting the Rockets to choke.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
They've got a history of 100%. It. James Harden in particular has a history of it. And James Harden picked a really awful game to disappear for most of.
But who's surprised? We're going to give some numbers. Not that surprising. But, I mean, look, the Houston his three-point numbers in his elimination games since coming to the Rockets, 1 of 9.
6 of 15, that's not bad. 2 of 13, 2 of 9, 3 of 7 is not bad, but you probably want James Harden shooting more than 7 threes in an elimination game. 7 of 3, 7 of 11. Do you know which game that 7 of 11 was?
I believe that was 2015. 2015 against the
Wow. So I'd be like
Thunder,
I
think.
Like you barely even want to include that in like the current narrative. That was 5 years ago at this point.
Well, then say the next 3 numbers after that too.
2 of 7, 2 of 6, 1 of 8. Like
yikes.
Those are 2 good performances. One like performance you can live with, and then a lot of really ugly performances, including of course the famous 0 for 20. The whole team went 0 for 27. But
and I mean, look, give credit where credit is due. The guy had a terrible game, but he also, when he checked in with, I think it was 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he accounted for their last 13 points.
Scored or assisted on their last 13. Yeah.
Like, he played decently at the end, and he acknowledged after. He's like, I played terribly. Right?
I think we can quote him here.
Yeah. He said, offensively, my game was shit.
Yeah.
Or I played like shit.
I played like shit was the line. Yeah.
He did not play well at all. You can't really cut him any excuses.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
Also, single-handedly won the game at the end.
Yeah, that too. I mean...
honestly, I wonder...
what the hell happened in that game? Like,
well, first of all, that's got to be super satisfying for James Harden. I'm sure you know exactly what play I'm going to reference here. Blocking a guy at the is that still your still your phone background? Or you change it?
No, that hasn't been my phone background for a while.
Wow.
Now it's
honestly
my
could have
Twitter.
sworn you were never going to change that.
No, but
we're talking about Manu blocking Harden from behind. To
my Twitter header.
Your Twitter, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next game after that, Harden scored 10 points, like in an elimination game. Like look, I mean, if you're going to stop the Rockets on offense, it's not rocket science what you do, right? You got to stop James Harden,
which you're not going to do unless James Harden stops himself. I really think that's the story on him at this point. Like,
I mean,
we know, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, James Harden can get a bucket whenever he wants.
Who have you seen play James Harden better than Lou Dort did? Honestly, like, I don't know.
Iggy and a couple of those Golden State series, I think, played him about as well.
That's about it.
But also, like, you'd expect Andre Iguodala to like play well defensively against one of the premier superstars in the league. You wouldn't expect Lou freaking Dort to lock
undrafted rookie, like,
set the record for the most points by an undrafted rookie in a Game 7 last night.
Yeah.
I mean, such a cool story. Like, I love that type of shit.
I mean, look, if you're the Rockets, that had to be your game plan coming in, right? You have the 3-headed monster of SGA, Dennis Schroeder, and Chris Paul at point guard, which was giving you fits.
I call that a 3-headed monster.
Okay, they're 3-headed like backcourt monster.
Yeah.
Right. That's their best lineup is when all 3 of them are out there and they're playing, smaller ball with Gallo out there. But you had to keep Lou Dort out there. The problem was that he was shooting 2 of 9 from 3 each game. And then he comes out and he shoots like 4 for 6 in the first half. I mean, if you're the Rockets, you kind of have to live with it.
It's just a classic Game 7, just like craziness.
Right? Like that's why I love sports. Like, you never know what's going to happen.
Who had Lou Dort hitting the over on whatever his points over under was last night?
I think I did.
How much money did they make off of it?
I think they did see. I did see someone like put like $50 on it and won like over $3,000 or $4,000. Like
I have no clue what his line was last night, but I can't imagine it was what he finished like 19.
What?
Do you remember what Lou Dort finished with? I didn't write it down.
He finished with 30 points.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, we just said he had the most points. He had the most
I think
points
the most
for an
undrafted rookie in Game 7 was probably like 6 or something.
No, it was he finished with 30 points. Like that, he balled out last night. And again, like if you're the Rockets, you run that game again, you're going to do the same thing. Like you.
Oh yeah.
I get it. Like you kind of have to respect them too. Like you got to close out, kind of, but like the amount of like dogs they have on that team, like you got to leave them open. And that was certainly not ideal for the Rockets. But you also had Chris Paul, who took like 6 shots going into the fourth quarter.
Chris Paul really, I don't want to say Chris Paul like blew the game for the Thunder, but I mean, he had 2 very good looks in the last minute and missed them both badly, especially that second one. I mean, that little like 8-foot leaner. That's a shot Chris Paul hits like literally in his sleep.
Well, we got to talk about what happened on that play before he went for that shot. There were like, and Ben, I know that you were basically pulling your hair out. I can't imagine. It's always a gamble when it's James Harden and Chris Paul playing against each other, although it was entertaining as hell because they're both very savvy, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get an advantage, whether it's flopping, trying to draw offensive charges, whatever. But if you go back to that play before Chris Paul missed it, I think first it was PJ Tucker who flopped at midcourt.
Yep.
Then I think it wasn't Chris Paul.
Is Jack Powers in this chat? No, he's not.
No. Then it was someone else that flopped for the Thunder.
I want to go Jack.
I
really hope Jack Powers shows up when we start talking about this Rockets-Lakers series.
Yeah. Then the Thunder flop at one side, and then Chris Paul comes away with it. James Harden tries to draw it, and none of those three were even remotely close.
I don't want to say it was peak James Harden because there's no part of that is like peak anything, but that was like the worst. I guess it was the worst of like James Harden back in like 2014, 2015 when the book on him was he was just like did not play defense, flopped everywhere, and was just like a shooter basically. Obviously, he's more than that now. James, he's like pretty sure he's like the second best post defender in the NBA the last 2 years.
Yeah, numbers get funky there because I also don't know how many like shot attempts have to go against him. Like Pau Gasol 2 years ago, like 3/4 of the way into the season was leading the league in 3-point shooting because he had like one more shot attempt than was
just
absolutely
barely
necessary.
qualified.
So you got to be careful. Like James Harden is not a very good perimeter
if you watch a Rockets, he's not a good perimeter defender. But I'm talking about like his post defense. If you watch a Rockets game, because they switch everything, James Harden gets posted up a lot.
Yeah,
and he's beefy, man. He's got he's definitely obviously is big enough and strong enough to like hold his own in the post against legit centers. I mean, you watch like Steven Adams try to post him off and just not be able to move him off the block. It's impressive. All right, but talking about this last play though, I mean, look, I'm not a basketball coach. You took fundamentals of coaching basketball. I just don't think I'd call you an NBA coach.
I would. I can coach the Nets.
The last play for the Thunder, they tried the cross screen to Gallo for what I would imagine which has been kind of like a curl, like 18-foot jumper. Yeah. Completely got blown up. But I'm like, you didn't have a secondary option. You didn't have anything else. What was?
That has to be remarkable. And Billy Donovan has kind of gotten a bad rep over the last couple of years. Sometimes he does not draw up good out-of-bounds plays and end-of-the-game plays.
And going into it, who did you expect to get the shot? Who did you expect to get that shot?
I expected it's either going to Gallo or it's going to CP3. But if you look at it and you see Steven Adams wide open, I mean, they had, 1.1 seconds left? It wasn't that he was wide open. It was, 1.1. It wasn't even that he was wide open necessarily, but and again, it's the type of thing where it's easy for us to look at a screenshot on Twitter and say like, oh, look, he's got PJ Tucker sealed, just lob it up and he can tap it in. Okay, but let me finish your point and then I'll go against you.
He had PJ Tucker sealed with a pretty clear lob at the basket there.
And saying he had PJ Tucker sealed is really cutting him some slack because PJ Tucker had his back to Steven Adams, and it's not like he was defending the inbounds. He had his he was facing Steven Adams. He had his back to the baseline, which means it's not even like Steven Adams was boxing him out and he had the seal. They could have just thrown it up and Steven Adams is there. There's 1.1 seconds left. You don't have to just tip it in immediately. You don't have a lot of time.
Do you remember who was defending the inbound? I guess it doesn't even matter. It's not like it was someone tall. It probably wasn't anyone taller than 6'7".
Yeah, no.
It's the Rockets. I mean, if the shot, if you're. It's just so frustrating. I'm not even a Thunder fan, and I'm frustrated. I get that. You gotta once the first action doesn't work, you kind of go into scramble mode. What is Steven Adams even doing coming out to the 3-point line? You might as well take the turnover. Right.
Well, I mean, if you're really gonna go for a shot,
around 3.
I mean, look, you're gonna on an inbounds play, end of the game, you're gonna switch everything, right? That's what defenses have to do.
No, yeah.
So you want to create a mismatch with something, and if you have someone like Gallo who is big enough that he can create a good screen, and he can also pop, you got to run a double screen, some sort of drag to at least make Chris Paul some sort of distraction. You can't work yourself back into that series and be as good of a clutch team as you are all season long, and then not even get a shot up and have Steven Adams be the last person to touch the ball
a coach
20 feet away. That's ridiculous.
I saw a really interesting thread. I think it was B-Ball Breakdown liked it on Twitter, and I was scrolling through. It was some I don't know, some high school coach. Take it with high school coach on Twitter. Take it with a grain of salt. This is by no means the gospel truth on how to run a sidelines out of bound play. But basically what this thread was saying was you basically or at least what this coach was saying he does in a similar situation, is you basically run a 2-man game and a 3-man game, and you force Rockets to defend 2 separate actions. You can't let them play all 5 guys like defensively on the same page. You've got to force them to like be ready for multiple things. Once the cross screen to Gallo didn't work, they were screwed. They had nothing.
You have to have another option. You can't not just live and die by one thing, especially because Steven Adams can't score from outside the paint, right? If you have someone like Joel Embiid, then maybe you at least think Nikola Jokic, any big that can shoot the ball, like you think at least twice.
Better than Steven Adams, like
or literally can shoot. Period. Right? Yeah. You have to at least like at that point you have to think twice about like, oh, we gotta switch everything, but if we get into this particular switch, we can't switch off because they'll have
also another
advantage.
Cardinal sin of an out of bounds play with like a second left. You never want to give the ball to a guy who's running the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like you need the ball going towards the basket.
Or you don't want to give it to your center who can't shoot the ball, right?
Once you're coming up on that 5 second with no timeouts, like you might as well throw the ball at the rim and hope someone taps it in.
Yeah.
Like it would have been a better.
That's ridiculous.
If you're a Thunder fan, I feel like you rather would have seen them like put a lob up to the basket and it like falls harmless, like as opposed to Steven Adams catching all of his back to the basket, like above the 3-point line, just like
ridiculous, man. Like anything, and even before that, all I'll say, they called that foul on James Harden, which they literally showed the replay after, and he didn't touch anyone.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say, ball don't lie.
Never has.
Gallo never has lied before. Never will lie in its life, right? Gallo missed that free throw. Gallo was what, 24 of 24?
Did you see the video of D'Antoni and like, I don't know if it was like an assistant or like some player who's like wasn't dressed, like waving their arms on the sideline right as he was about to shoot?
I didn't see that.
I mean, like it doesn't. I don't think that distracted him, but it's kind of funny to see. Literally, right as Gallo's like here, D'Antoni like flings his arm up.
Just a weird end to the game. I think it was like against the script completely, right? Kevin O'Connor had a great article.
Game 7 for you, though. I mean, throw everything you expect out the window for Game 7.
Lou Dort shooting 50% from behind the arc and putting up 30 points. Shout out Chris Paul for becoming the oldest player in NBA history to have a triple-double in Game 7.
We'll talk about this in a minute, but Chris Paul's record in playoff series now when he's healthy.
Hit it, Ben.
I mean, look, I don't want to sit here and like it's 7-10.
Not good.
I don't want to sit here and like bash Chris Paul's legacy because he's one of the most is going to go first ballot Hall of Famer, the point god, like literally
point god.
The embodiment of that nickname. Dude, I'm 7-10 in playoff series.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's something you. At the end of the day, you can't not look at the numbers, right? Like you look at LeBron and you're like, LeBron's fantastic. At the end of the day, he's 3-6.
Like,
in the
it's
finals,
so cliche.
right?
Like the best
gotta
players
count for
win.
something.
Best players win.
Yeah.
And you're telling me Chris Paul's not even 500 in his for the playoffs?
Yeah.
It's just like it's baffling. Like I literally read that stat and I was like,
I really don't know.
Really take away from his legacy at this point. But like that's part of it. I mean, look at Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing never got a ring. I still looked at it as one of like the all-time greats, but never got a ring.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, Chris Paul's never even made the finals, right? Like,
yeah, at least Pat made the finals and was like leading the Knicks. And Patrick Ewing, like so many other guys in the '90s, got screwed by MJ, and then finally
Charles Barkley too. I mean,
finally got to the finals and then ran into Hakeem, he ran into Hakeem, but then the Knicks in 2000. I was thinking of the Knicks in 2000. They lost to the Spurs.
Yes, correct. I was waiting for you to say that.
There's nothing you can say about the Knicks that's gonna hurt me. Come on.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like again, Chris Paul 7-10 in playoff series. Like hasn't made the finals. Like made the conference finals a couple of years ago, and that was it. Like. I don't know what's next for the Thunder. He's got Chris Paul is still really good, and this was
also on a fat contract.
Yep, the point guard has been rejuvenated. That's for damn sure. I mean,
rejuvenated, but not rejuvenated in the sense that he's like, he's kind of like.
He was an all-star. He was an all-star this season. I mean, did we like? That's the thing. Look, we're coming off a couple of. Let me just make my point. We're coming off a couple of
Dragic
seasons.
Was an all-star too.
What?
Dragic was also an all-star. I mean,
was he?
I believe so.
I don't think he was. My point being is that, me, you, 90% of basketball.
Also last year.
Okay. Me, you, and 90% of basketball fans, maybe even higher, apologize to Chris Paul this season because we thought OKC is going to be bad, right? They're going to be a lottery team. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. And then they come out and they push James Harden and the Rockets to 7 games, right? You got to tip your cap to that. Where do they go from there is interesting because Chris Paul had himself a fantastic season, but like you said, he's 35 years old. He's going to be going into season number 16. At this point, you get to a point in your career where it's just like, you're great, but one injury and you could be done. And that's unfortunately how it goes.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what the Thunder cap situation for next year is. I don't know who's got an expired contract. I don't know what their deal is, but they need a superstar if they want to continue. And they've got a really, really good young core. I love SGA.
Mm-hmm.
I really do like Steven Adams. I mean, he's obviously not a superstar, but for a shooting center,
man, I don't know, man. I have soured on. He was not good last night. You talk about you having PJ.
We're talking about one game.
He's been basically being played off the court all series. They're better when Gallo is out there. And look, if you're gonna have what's the way to beat the Rockets when they're on defense, right? If they're playing super small, you got to kill them on the boards.
Yeah.
There were maybe 7 or 8 balls that Steven Adams didn't have to jump and he got the rebound, but there were a couple of baby hooks that he missed, and you got to be able to defend away from the rim a little bit, right?
Yeah. That is definitely the drawback with Steven Adams. He's never going to be that perimeter defender that you want. And not even
and he doesn't he just doesn't give you anything outside of the paint. And if you have good wing defenders, that's great, but Dennis Schroeder held his own against James Harden, but is not a very good wing defender. Chris Paul is smart, but he's not a good wing defender, right? Gallo is not a good wing defender.
I feel if you're OKC, you're basically in the exact same position you were going into the season, where you're kind of looking like a late lottery, maybe another first round type of exit team. It's where do you improve? This is it's not where you want to be as an NBA team.
Yeah, I think they showed this series.
I think you can count on more improvement from SGA. You can probably Lou Dort clearly is a talented piece.
Would it be fair to say their ceiling is probably second round, making the second round? I mean, they showed they're at least capable of making it, but I can't see them advancing any further.
Second round, in the West, I don't know if I would count on them to make the playoffs again.
Okay,
season.
yeah, I'm saying their absolute ceiling, right? If they could have reached
I'm saying
this
ceiling floor. I'm saying their ceiling is first, second round, and their floor is a lottery team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really just depends what they end up doing with Chris Paul.
It's tough to. It's gonna be tough to move him with that.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to move.
$6.5 million.
A couple people have been saying for a while now, send him to the Sixers would be interesting.
That's just not feasible. The Sixers have no cap space.
You got to trade a couple people away. I mean,
you get rid of Tobias Harris. You trade Simmons.
But if you're the Sixers and you just absolutely throw draft picks and you throw Tobias Harris,
do the Sixers even have the draft picks to throw like that? Also, how many draft picks are you really getting for an aging CP3 on a contract that he just does not deserve?
I mean, you got a pretty good amount of draft picks back if you were when you were trading away CP3 for Russell Westbrook. They got 2 swaps and at least 1 first, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And again, Chris Paul was an all-star point guard. Chris Paul was an all-star point guard. I mean, you're talking about a win now team.
The reason I'm not so yes, he was an all-star, but I think if you take the name Chris Paul away from his numbers, is that guy an all-star? I don't know.
Yeah, he was literally an all-star.
Okay, yes, I know he was literally an all-star. I'm saying you take the name Chris Paul away from that. I think
if he showed anything, it's that he's still got gas.
He's still got it, but are you really going to trade picks and talented pieces to acquire Chris Paul? He's not getting any better.
Shit, look, if you're the Sixers and you're okay, we need a creator who can shoot off the ball, who's capable of running the pick and roll, and who is smart, and you have good defenders on that team that can kind of back you up after that, doesn't sound that bad to me.
I worry about committing
if you
super hard to Chris Paul
Simmons
right
and
now,
Embiid, like,
which I don't think they should at all. You're gonna keep Simmons, Embiid, and acquire Chris Paul.
if you're going to win now, like, again, nothing matters. Nothing matters if you win a title. It doesn't matter if you win a title, right? That's all that matters.
Do you really think that that'd be a smart move for the Sixers to acquire Chris Paul on top of Embiid and Simmons? I feel like
we're talking about the Sixers, right? Like,
I feel like that makes things even more difficult for them. It's not like Chris Paul is a sniper. Like, Chris Paul doesn't really fix their issue of outside shooting.
Well, but he's a good, but he can shoot off the ball, and you think about how much attention that draws in.
What's Chris Paul's value off the ball? He's
another creator you can use.
Dude, I don't know where you're pulling this take out of.
We'll talk about this the next time. Trust me, it's gonna be something that's gonna be talked about. Like, I don't know if it's possible to trade him and keep both of those pieces, but anyway, let's move on real quick.
Bizarre take.
Real quick before we get into Miami and Milwaukee, let's just touch upon Houston and the Lakers. I think they start
PJ Tucker. It needs to
Saturday.
Wrap up. Oh, yeah. Man.
I mean,
and this is the test right here. If you're Houston, this is like putting your system to the test. It's going up against a mobile, athletic big man in Anthony Davis. Like, PJ Tucker is going to have his hands full, and that means PJ Tucker's not. I've got to imagine PJ Tucker is going to spend most of his time on AD. I mean, Houston switches everything, but like primarily,
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because if you're the Lakers, do you play AD at the 5? Which I think that's the better. Why you wouldn't. But they haven't. They constantly play JaVale and they put Dwight Howard there, and I guess that. But I mean, think about this.
Why wouldn't? All right, if you're the Lakers,
putting Covington on AD. If not, like,
I don't see a world in which Dwight and JaVale are like playing a ton in this series. This is exactly what the Rockets are designed to do: is to play traditional, like, slow, non-athletic big men off the floor.
Yeah.
If you've got Anthony Davis, why wouldn't you play? Like, Frank Vogel should be fired if Anthony Davis isn't playing like 85% of his minutes at the 5 in the series. Seriously. AD is exactly the perfect piece to counter the Rockets' small ball, because you can keep a 7-footer on the floor but not sacrifice anything defensively.
Yes, but at the same time, if you want to stretch the floor a little bit with AD and give yourself another weapon to attack off the dribble from the outside, then I think you do play some of your minutes with Dwight or JaVale in there, especially when PJ Tucker's off the floor.
And how often is PJ Tucker going to be off the floor?
I don't know. Man's probably going to play like 45 minutes a game.
Exactly. Like,
PJ Tucker's going to have a rough time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, PJ Tucker. That's why I wanted Jack Powers in here so bad. Like, he's the president of the PJ Tucker fan club.
It's gonna be interesting because look, I mean,
every time if you're doubting whether or not you should play AD at the 5, just watch a compilation of AD stepping it back like he's a guard, but is also 7 feet tall.
I think the Lakers are well rested. Houston's gonna come into this a little tired.
More than a little tired. They got
Lou
24
Dort,
hours at this point to get ready.
Yeah, Lou Dort is basically the ideal build of what you want for someone guarding James Harden, right? Good lateral quickness, good strength, and
that is definitely a concern for the Lakers. I don't know who's
going to guard him, right? But
you can put LeBron on him for stretches. But hey, look who's here!
Jack Powers talking PJ Tucker, most overrated player in the NBA. I'm kidding. If you're listening to us on Spotify or you're watching on YouTube and you're confused, we're on Instagram Live. Of course, you can watch us live if you want at Second Floor Sports, or you can catch us after on our YouTube, which is just Second Floor Sports, and on our Spotify, same name. Twitter's the only one where we just couldn't get that handle. It's 2 Floor Sports. But it's going to be
the number two.
They're going to have their hands full. It's going to be an interesting matchup because the Lakers are a very good defensive team.
Well, that's the thing. Even if they don't necessarily have like that one stopper per se, like I don't see this going more than 5.
I don't either, honestly.
You get like a true like god tier whole series from Harden. You have PJ Tucker playing out of his mind against Anthony Davis.
Yeah. I mean, Covington was big for them last game. I know he was getting cooked all series long by CP3, but Like Covington was one of the heroes in that game for the Rockets. I mean, he put up 20 points. He shot it well from three, and he's not a good individual defender, but team defense is the name of the game for Robert.
Exactly.
Right.
And you look at the Jesus Christ, the Raptors just completely. I was like, they don't necessarily have that like one perimeter stopper, but they play defense 5 guys. Like it's a glove. It's 5 fingers on a hand. Like they play such great team defense the same way the Lakers do.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on
also,
to
just last point here.
Yeah.
Arrested LeBron. Bad news for Houston.
I think you pencil in the Lakers at this point, honestly.
Like, I'm taking Lakers in 5.
I got all my first round winners right prediction wise. I didn't get the round of applause to me. I didn't get the length. I didn't get the length of each series.
That's always just such a crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, I think I picked Rockets in 5, maybe 6. I don't think anyone really expected it to go 7, honestly.
I didn't.
I think people that didn't really look at the numbers thought it could be a close series, but I think I'd say the Rockets kind of lost those games more than OKC earned them. OKC played well, but
it's semantics at that point. Let's move on to this Bucks Heat series that I think we both agreed looks like it might be pretty short-lived.
Surprising. Like, look, you look at the numbers and what each team does well coming into this, right? The Heat shoot the 3 exceptionally well. They burn drop coverage, and they have enough playmakers in their starting lineup now with Dragic starting that you can bring Kendrick Nunn off the bench if you choose, although he is a just defensive sieve. They do have enough playmakers. Like, this is a team that can beat the Bucks.
And then they've also got the unicorn piece, if you will, and Bam.
Yeah, Bam was fantastic, and Olynyk had himself a really good game too. A really good job bringing him off, and again,
Kelly Olynyk's not the reason the Heat are going to win or lose a game.
No,
but
absolutely not. But it's something we're going to touch on later, is bench pieces and all that. But how do you beat drop coverage? Right, it's someone that can burn you from the mid range. And it's someone, if you have a pick and pop center like Porzingis or, to a lesser extent, Olynyk, someone that can set a screen. And if you have a dynamic guard running the pick and roll, they pop out and it's an easy 3. Yeah. And that's been burning the Bucks, but they're so good that they've been outplaying anyone.
They've also got if you don't play your best basketball, the third player to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. Like, yeah, as much as Giannis hasn't, it's like, when we were writing this rundown, I was like, yeah, Giannis hasn't been playing great. And then I look at his numbers and he's like putting up his season averages,
Yeah.
It's funny when you get guys like Giannis and players who have been so good, so consistently good for like 2-3 seasons now, it becomes quiet when they put up like 30, 12, and 5. You're like, oh yeah. Solid game for Giannis, as if 30, 12, and 5 isn't absurd.
I mean, that's the thing, is that like in the playoffs, who cares if you're averaging 45, and 45. If you're losing the game, it doesn't matter.
No, obviously.
And Giannis is putting up numbers, but like,
well, I think the concerning thing for the Bucks is like their numbers as a team are not awful, honestly.
No,
like, I really haven't watched much of either of the first 2 games in the series. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like watching where I can, just like reading recaps and all that. But like, the Bucks shot 45% from 3 in game 1, and played worse in game 1 than in game 2. In game 2, they shot 28% from 3. I mean, game 2 was a complete toss-up. I could very easily could have gone either way. We'll talk about the officiating here in a minute. And I said the panic level for the Bucks is 6 out of 10 on the Ben Carlton panic level scale.
I push it a little higher to 7. Like,
I could see a 7 out of 10, honestly, because like the numbers. That's what I was saying about the numbers. Don't even look that bad for Milwaukee, but they're just losing. Like, they've got to figure something out.
It's a very good defensive team, right? You talk about
the Bucks
5 fingers. What?
The Bucks are. Both teams. Who are you talking about here?
Both, but I'm talking about the Bucks. Like, they're a very good defensive team. And last game, they had, I think, 7 people scoring double digits, and Jimmy Butler had 10 points. Like, that's your best player, and he's putting up 10 points. Like, that's a problem, because you look at both of these games, you talk about it. It's like, it's not like the Heat are just absolutely getting lucky in something or just up shooting like, you can never replicate this type numbers. Like, the Heat are playing their ball, right?
No,
they're
exactly.
beating the Bucks in their own game.
That's such a great point. Like, it's not like Miami is playing like batshit crazy out of their minds.
No.
Like, they're playing the game they played all season long. And the weird thing is, kind of Milwaukee is too. Like, I mean, yeah, it's 2 games, and game 1 was like close-ish on the scoreboard. Miami kind of dominated. In game 2, 2-point game. Such a bizarre. We might as well get into the officiating if we're going to keep talking about this game too.
But before we get into the officiating, I got to talk about what Bud's doing. I mean, bro, you got to play your stars more than 35 minutes.
Ride Giannis. You have to.
Like he needs to crack 40 minutes a night. Like this is the playoffs. You're down 0-2. Like you need to shorten up your rotation because people like DiVincenzo and Connaughton who can give you good minutes, and every once in a while you'll have like a DiVincenzo game or a Connaughton game. They'll shoot like 3 for 6 from 3 and give you the contributions you need. If you're not getting that right now, you got to have a short leash. You got to have 6 or 7. And
well,
like,
I think
Giannis got in foul trouble, but like, and look, I've been watching the games. I've been pausing it. I've been rewatching plays. I've been watching the film studies, and like, Bud's getting out coached. Like, the Spoelstra, who everyone knows is one of the best coaches.
Is a genius.
He's destroying him like strategically. Like he's putting Olynyk in when Brook Lopez comes off the floor and killing them on pick and pops. I mean, the Bucks aren't switching, even though they're playing small and not switching. Like, and then you're not playing your stars that many minutes. Like the Bucks are in trouble. Like,
obviously this is a must-win game 3 for them tomorrow night. Like, I just don't know what you do if you're Milwaukee because one of their strengths, in my opinion, is their bench pieces are so interchangeable. Like they all fill very similar roles. So like you can it's easy for Bud to like mix and match and find like the kind of the intricacies that can be the difference in winning and losing a game. But if all your bench pieces are having the same issues or they're not really being aggressive enough offensively and they're just not providing enough tangible impact on the scoreboard, then you look at your bench and you're like, well, damn, I've got like 4 guys who do the exact same thing, which is good in some ways, but then in this particular series it's hurting you because like where do you turn? Like initially I said maybe the Bucks should look to get Kyle Korver going more. Obviously Kyle Korver is not helping you at all defensively at this point. Like Kyle Korver hasn't even really been Kyle Korver is not going to win or lose you a game. And maybe look for a little more aggressiveness out of George Hill.
I think for me, like you got to like.
I've been critical of Chris Middleton, maybe a little off on that. I didn't realize Chris Middleton was almost 50-40-90 this year. Honestly,
no, I've been trying to tell you this last couple episodes. Like, he's nice, but again, like you're seeing the issue here with like Middleton's creating his own offense, right? He can create his own offense. Giannis can create his own offense. The reason I hesitate just a second. Because Miami, like they were always going to be a tough team for the Bucks to beat because Jimmy Butler, very good defender, has good size. Kelly Olynyk, not very strong, wouldn't classify him as a good defender, but has the size. Bam Adebayo, very good size, built to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like,
I feel like you're kind of glossing over the fact that Bam is looking like the next version of Draymond Green.
No, I'm not glossing over the fact. I'm just saying, like, if you have Bam on Giannis, right, and then you run a pick and roll where Giannis is the ball handler, and even if you get him off, like, you got to run that with, like, George Hill and with like Dante DiVincenzo. Like, you got to get other people involved. You got to seek out those mismatches. Like, Giannis, you got to get him.
See, but you're saying that, but then you're also saying that you need to ride Giannis more. It's kind of like, which way do you think the Bucks should go?
I think they have to ride him more. But they got to get him more involved in the offense, not through him specifically generating it, not through him just having the ball in his hands all the time. Like, you got to have him be the screener, man, or you got to have like George Hill screening for him because that's how you create the mismatches, right? I think it was a first game. The success comes when you have like Tyler Hero or you have like Duncan Robinson guarding Chris Middleton, for example. If you get that mismatch or you have them on George Hill. And then you have like Bam on Giannis, right? If you run pick and roll and you get a switch, if Giannis is the screener and then you swing it over to him, like, you're creating mismatches there. You got to seek them out because Giannis is a walking mismatch. The only problem is
Giannis is unstoppable. Literally.
Yeah, but the problem is like Giannis can still – he's been putting up like 30, 35 up a game. And if you don't get anything else from your players and, it's like really bad turnovers from them, like
I think we're starting to see some frustration from Giannis because like you look at any shot from the series or literally any game that the Bucks lose or get played very tough against, is you see the other team literally lining 3 guys up in front of Giannis.
Yeah,
like there's this one really funny shot I saw. It was like Giannis like right at the top of the key, Bam in front of him, Duncan Robinson on one side of Bam. I think it was like Jimmy on the other side.
Yeah.
And just all three of them are literally staring at Giannis. Like,
well, you ever
Robinson's
seen
got like his foot like sort of towards whoever he's guarding, but it's like they're triple teaming him basically.
You ever seen that video of Stan Van Gundy when he was coaching the Pistons, where he's like, "Build the damn wall."
Yeah.
We got a minute and a half left on our live stream, so
Wow.
we're gonna cut it here. We're gonna come back. We're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna talk Toronto and
Boston.
Toronto, Boston. Just finish up on Utah and Denver, and then talk some MLB because we got a lot to talk about. Ben, let's get right into. Actually, let's finish up first. Heat in Milwaukee.
I mean,
Is the series done?
The series isn't over yet. When you've got the presumptive MVP, going to be the third player ever to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same series, absolutely within the realm of possibility that Giannis just goes God mode and pulls Milwaukee back into the series. It's only 2-0. I mean, literally, Giannis has seen this exact story before, but on the other side. Last year, the Bucks went up 2-0 over Toronto in the conference finals, not even the second round, and then Kawhi went God mode and brought Toronto all the way back and won the next 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm keeping the panic level at 6 out of 10. Like, you got to win game 3.
Yeah.
I think we need to see Giannis go God mode, honestly, and just take it to a level that we haven't seen. I mean, this is the kind of the same issue we ran into in the postseason last year, where he got really frustrated by teams just completely walling off the paint.
Mm-hmm.
This is a better Bucks team than they had last year.
Mm.
I think it is. I mean, just by the sheer fact that Giannis is a year better, Brooks a better shooter than he was last year.
I think it's better, but
they're just a year older, a year wiser, a year more seasoned. I mean,
not having losing a creator like Malcolm Brogdon, which I don't know if you really had to pay him that much money. I'm not saying it was the wrong.
Yeah,
move.
I don't think Brogdon really makes. I don't think Brogdon moves. I look at this.
It's just another creator, man. Like, and he's a good defender.
What's Eric Bledsoe?
Not as good of a defender, and has historically struggled in the playoffs, and is playing well, but they're getting killed off the ball. Like, the off-ball screens are running for Duncan Robinson. Just like, the switches that they're missing, just it doesn't make any sense, man. And I got this notification from Bleacher Report. I'm not putting a lot of stock into it, but I do think Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee. But at some point, Chris Middleton is not 22 years old, right? Brooke Lopez is 30.
How old is Middleton though?
I think he's around 30 years old. Eric Bledsoe is over 30, if I'm not mistaken. This is not a young core. And when it comes
29, I mean,
yeah, again,
Bledsoe's
he's still
30, Brooks 32, yeah.
This is not a young core. And when it's going to come down to
I don't know about this line, man. It's not a young core, but it's not like they're aging.
No, I know. But again, Brooks 7 foot and he's 32.
Also,
right? He's
DiVincenzo and Connaughton, I mean.
Right, but they've been non-factors.
I don't know if you can play they're getting old card yet.
No, I'm not playing that they're getting old card, but I'm saying if Giannis looks around, Jokic in Denver is like, okay, I got Gary Harris, who is not the youngest, but I have Jamal Murray and I have Michael Porter Jr., right? He has young pieces there.
Giannis is also a boatload better than Nikola Jokic.
You're missing my point. I'm saying it's people for him to, be in the league with and start a young, big three with, people that they can stay together 4 or 5 years and be absolutely sure they're going to be in their athletic prime. And when it gets down to it, Giannis is going to look around and be like, okay, Bud has been out-coached now 2 playoffs in a row. I can play for him, or I can play for Spoelstra in Miami.
You're closing the casket on Milwaukee already. It's just 2-0.
I'm not. And again, I'm not putting stock in him even leaving because he says he wants to stay in Milwaukee.
Sounds like you're putting stock in it.
But I'm just saying, if Milwaukee loses in the second round, when we came into this season, we were like, okay, last season they lost in the conference semis, right?
Yeah.
So
no, they lost in the conference finals.
No, Toronto
Milwaukee?
beat.
Oh, Toronto.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
What are you're like? No, Toronto.
Toronto beat the 76ers in the conference finals.
Bro, this is literally exactly what I was saying on the break. I had no clue we were even talking about the Sixers.
No, I literally just said that. No, Toronto won the conference finals against the 76ers. the Bucks lost in the conference semifinals last year. You got to think, like, bare minimum, they have to reach the conference finals this year, right? Or else it's a lost season, or else it's like it's a failure of a season.
Yeah, I would agree.
At some point, like, don't think we're ready to have this conversation yet, but here we are having it. Giannis is like, okay, my head coach has been out-coached, and I don't have a young core to continue developing with. Like, just saying.
I feel like you're writing the book on Milwaukee a little too early, man.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Oh, you're not? Okay, cool.
I'm not. I'm just saying you got to at least think about it. Like,
I think
Milwaukee takes.
Talk to me in a week if they're out of the playoffs. I mean,
I think Milwaukee takes Game 3, and then things get real interesting from there. But they're in trouble.
All right, let's talk a little Raptors Celtics.
All right, come with your heat because you said you've been saving something up.
I think the Celtics sweep the series. Like, no, seriously though, you look at these two teams.
Damn.
A lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Deep, really talented, extremely well coached. Two of the best coaches in the league in that series.
That's for damn sure.
But Boston's got the two best players in the series. I think Tatum is clearly the best player in the series.
Yeah.
And I think Kemba is better than Kemba is playing better than Siakam right now.
That's for damn sure.
So, I mean, do they have the two best players in the series?
I mean, Siakam had to be, if not the best player, he had to at least contend with Tatum for it in the series.
Yeah, and he's not. Very much is not. I mean,
very much not.
And he looks honestly similar to the way Giannis looked like 3 years ago or so, before he really took that first like crazy leap where we were like, oh my God, like where did this come from?
Mm-hmm.
He looks exactly like the guy who's like stupid athletic, like crazy talented, but hasn't quite put together some of the finer details yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Siakam just every possession just flying into the lane, hitting his little spin move. It's literally like his controller's broken or something.
Oh man, he looks like me trying to do a Euro step on 2K before I really figured it out.
That's what I taught you how to do in 2K.
Yeah, he taught me how to do it. And I still can never do the Euro step. I always just do like that half spin where you just go like that. Like,
well, I mean, how does Toronto? Like the reason I'm saying the Celtics get swept, the Celtics sweep here is like, if you're Toronto, like what do you do? I mean, similar position to Milwaukee. Honestly, it's like you're at. Let me backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Toronto, in my opinion, was always overachieving this year. Not to take anything away from them, but they reminded me a lot, and we talked about this on the show, they reminded me a lot of the player of the month Hawks. 60-game winner, great team, deep, well-coached, but didn't really have that true superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And we know in the playoffs you need a true superstar, and I think we're seeing pretty clearly that Siakam is just not there yet.
No,
it was cool when he went from most improved to like improving again beyond that, to where he like legitimately could have won back-to-back most improved.
Mm-hmm.
But Siakam is still just not there. At least, especially now as like a ball handler creator. I think maybe he takes another leap like we saw. Like, I mean, we've seen Giannis the past 3 years. We've seen Giannis take improvements in his game where it's like, how is that even possible?
That's why, it's like, what is the criteria for most improved, right? Because
I mean, it's subjective. It's literally, it's not subjective. Like you can look at a guy's numbers and be like, oh, well, he improved just here. Like, but it's like,
shout out Brandon Ingram too, by the way.
Yeah, true. But most improved is always like, it's a story based award. It's like, it's the guy who went from like bench piece to star, you know?
I mean, look, MVP has been too, right? It's not like Russell Westbrook didn't deserve it during his triple-double season, but like he could have made a case.
I was actually just talking about this with Josh, a friend of the pod, Josh Hayden. We were talking about like Westbrook literally hurt himself by averaging a triple-double again. Like it becomes less impressive when you do it again.
Yeah.
And
also, shout out Russell Westbrook. We didn't mention this. He hasn't made it out of the first round in like 5 years, something like that. So
wow.
Yeah. Literally.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, huh?
That's nuts. But back to this Toronto-Boston series. I mean,
what do you do?
You said you had an idea.
I had an idea. First of all, don't shoot 11 of 40 from 3.
Good idea. Right? I like that.
Great start. Kyle Lowry, I think, went 0 for 7 from beyond the arc. Like, you just can't have those numbers. And it's not rocket science that once you get to the playoffs, like, you have more time to game plan because you're just focusing on one team and you're going to key in on things. And maybe it's not the most – it's surprising that he's struggling to this extent for Siakam over on the Toronto side. But, like, if you look at the numbers, like, it's not like Toronto was ever a very good half-court offense. Like, they're good defensively. They get most of their points in transition. Like, that's their bread and butter. And if you look at it, Boston is in the top 5 defensively, and they're one of the best transition defense teams. Like, like Boston, again.
Well, and Boston's got such a litany of different types of defenders that they can use. You've got Marcus Smart, who's like your prototypical perimeter stopper.
And we got to talk about Marcus Smart, too, because that was a big concern coming in, right, is that you didn't have Gordon Hayward. And
where did Marcus Smart get the strap from? What, he had 5 threes in the fourth quarter last game?
5 threes in a row. I mean, we're forgetting that Toronto was on pace to win this game. They were up 12 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Or I think it got into 8 once it made it to the fourth. But, like, that's just tough when you lose on 5 straight made threes from Marcus Smart. Like, you're not going to get that every game.
Well, I get, like, if you're Toronto, you're saying, like, all right, if Marcus Smart wants to pull up from 3 like that, go for it. But
you're going to have to take that. Yeah.
You know what Marcus Smart shot on off-the-dribble threes this year?
It's like 30%. Lower?
40% on off-the-dribble threes for Marcus Smart.
Okay, but how many like shots a game, right?
I don't know, but 40% on off-the-dribble threes for Marcus Smart? That's absurd.
I need to see some sample size there, but
I mean, yeah, small sample size, but like 40% is 40%. I mean,
look, Gordon Hayward averaged 17 points a game. Like, you have to make up for that somehow. And Daniel Tice has had himself a good series, but it's not like he was going to give you like any offense, especially not create his own. You're lucky if you get maybe 3 from him a game.
Yeah.
But like Marcus Smart has stepped up big, and Jaylen Brown has had himself a fantastic series too.
The fact that the Celtics can have Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown on the floor together is nuts. Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm saying. The Celtics are everything that the Raptors are in terms of like deep, well coached play as greater than the sum of their parts. But then they also have that superstar talent for if they're in a close game down the stretch. You give the ball to Jason Tatum and you get out of the way and let him get a bucket.
I think the Bucks series goes 7. I think this is.
You think Bucks series goes 7?
Wow. I think this could be. Celtics.
I thought you were the one closing the casket on the Bucks.
I was saying I wasn't closing the casket.
You really got me fucked up this episode, man. You're saying the Bucks should be 7 out of 10 panicking and are considering like blowing it up, but are also going to take the series to 7.
I think
the Sixers should trade for CP3. You're coming with, I thought I was coming with the heat today. Jesus,
man. I'm always coming with the heat. You know me. I think the Celtics can win this in 6. Like,
you think Toronto takes 2 off them?
I think it's possible.
I just feel like the Raptors are getting outclassed at their own game. And
the Raptors shot 26% from 3 last game, they had to blow a double-digit lead. Like, that at least warrants 1 or 2 games.
I think if you're Boston, you're playing with all the confidence in the world right now for good reason.
I also just don't think Nick Nurse, he's too good of a coach to let them get swept. Or even I think like
I agree. We're talking about the coach of the year, like
and well deserved at that.
Absolutely. I mean, like coach of the year is always kind of again sort of subjective. It's like you want to talk about like a narrative storyline do you want to push there? Again, not that he doesn't deserve it, but I think any year in the NBA there are like 3 or 4 coaches who could legitimately win coach of the year.
Well, it's always tough because it's like
Nick Nurse being one of them. Like I could not watch a single NBA game and be like, yeah, Nick Nurse probably could win coach of the year this year. Like, like if you're literally just looking at record.
Because you also got to think like, again, you got to go by storylines and you got to acknowledge the fact that, he kept that defense where it was. They had a top 2 defense in the league without Kawhi Leonard, who was their best perimeter defender. And it's the same thing. It was like when the Spurs at their peak, it was like Pop can win coach of the year every single year, but they're not going to. And,
because they're not,
LeBron could win MVP every year, probably. Like,
yeah.
Wonder if LeBron's going to win another MVP by the time he's done. I don't think so.
I know one guy who really hopes he wins MVP this year, and it's not me.
Not me either.
Strat.
Oh, yeah. Our good friend Strat Giovanni. So you put like $50 on him or something?
Put a lot of money on LeBron's win MVP.
I don't know. And it was late, too. Let's just put a bow on Utah-Denver because that series is done.
Remember when that was the craziest Game 7 of the round?
You'll put this in the rundown, but like, bro, what year is it? Like,
literally.
The game ended in the 70s? Like,
Well, I forgot who. I think it might have been B-Ball Breakdown on Twitter. Someone had the poll. It was like, do you prefer a shootout Game 7 or like a 82? What was the 82-80 was the final?
Something like that.
Like that literally was the game straight out of the 90s.
I don't mind a good defensive slugfest. And like
fun.
these were two good defensive teams, so we forget that because they're
like a defensive slugfest and like an ugly game. Jazz Nuggets was not an ugly game at all. It was a hard fought, really. I mean, it was good. It wasn't like guys were like missing open shots. It was like a battle for every single possession.
The basketball fan in me, like the hardcore basketball fan in me, was like, I enjoyed this being a defensive slugfest.
Loved it, absolutely.
But
loved it.
Just entertainment wise, I was like, damn, I wish this game ended like 152 to 150. Like,
okay, but like you can't complain about anything in that series. I mean, that was my favorite series. Now that the first round's over, that was my favorite series of the first round.
Not at all.
100%.
Just last question before, real quick, we like just think. I think the Clippers have no problem dealing with the Nuggets. That's the next round series.
I mean, I've said it a million times. I think the Clippers they're my pick to win the title this year.
Yeah, me too.
But the Nuggets are deep, man. They have a lot of different like looks they can throw at you because they're so deep.
What I tell you, man, Gary Harris coming back is big for them. I told you, that's big. It just gives them another bench piece too, just to move someone down. And Monty
Paul
Morris
George
and Jeremy
also
Grant.
other side of it, Paul George becoming Paul George again is huge.
I mean, if Paul George plays at like 75% of what Paul George is, like they take this game and this series in like max 6. I think I pick Clippers in 5. Like.
Give me Clippers in 6. I think Jokic is gonna have a huge series.
Okay.
For Denver. I don't think Zubats is good, Harrell is good, but I'm a huge Jokic fan. I probably have a higher opinion of him than a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll have one game this series where people are like, "Holy shit, Nikola Jokic is the boy." Like,
I think it's going to be interesting because, Zubats, like his numbers against Nurkic were fantastic in the first round. But Nurkic, you got to remember, didn't play the whole series.
And just not even on close to the level.
Didn't play the whole season, I mean.
Jokic,
he just came back.
It's just not even, And also just
not even close to
injury. It's just, like disrespectful to put Jokic in the same category. Other than large, like Eastern European centers. I mean.
True. Before we wrap up and we hit to, any other sport.
Yeah.
You think this is the ceiling for the Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell Jazz?
The ceiling?
I feel like this is a question we got to ask.
No.
No?
I think Donovan Mitchell has so much room to improve in terms of like his efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I love Gobert. Like, I think Gobert is about as good. I think Gobert is like, of like the traditional quote unquote centers still in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Gobert is as good as you can ask for. Defensive player of the year. We were talking about this, I think, 2 shows ago. I was talking about like Gobert does such a great job of picking his spots to attack.
Yep.
Like capitalizing on being like a big center that a lot of teams just don't have the size to deal with down low.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's limited in today's NBA, but he's just so good defensively. Once Gobert's defensive ability starts to fall off, we might be looking at some issues. But I think especially given that Donovan Mitchell is still a bit – I don't want to call Donovan Mitchell a Chuck, but like
look, you're asking like a 20-something-year-old guy to be like your main offensive like producer.
And he's doing it.
And he's doing it well, and then you bring in, Bojan Bogdanovic, and you have Mike Conley.
I literally always forget Bojan was not in the series.
Yeah,
that adds so much.
You got to remember that too. But like, I don't Gobert. Like every time,
I don't think to answer your question, I don't think this is the ceiling for Utah.
I am gonna agree with you, but also think like I don't think it's that.
They literally took
off.
him to 7. Like they took him to 7 and came like that close to winning the series.
I don't
literally
think
the ball was halfway down.
Yeah, I know.
The ball was literally
Mike
halfway
Conley,
down.
Man. Like,
yeah, really.
I don't think their ceiling is that far away. And like Gobert didn't have a very good game.
I didn't say their ceiling was far away. I said there's
I know. All right. Let's move
Real
to the
quick,
NFL. We got about 2-3 things to talk about. We're gonna have a big NFL show next week. So
yeah, absolutely. Leonard Fournette signs with the Bucs. I mean, I figured he was going to – I didn't think he was going to stay a free agent for long. He's a talented back. Kind of the Bucks were not a team I expected them to go to.
I keep going back and forth because, like, you know, like I'm assuming the reason you say that is because of fit. And
Fit
like,
in the fact that they've already got two backs in
Yeah.
Shady and Ronald Jones.
I wouldn't have thought that, but like, isn't this the classic, like, you know, veteran quarterback? Like, you got, you know, Gronk there. Like, you're like, oh, we're just looking for the big names type thing. And it's not like, I mean, Fournette ran for over 1,000 yards last season.
Yeah.
It's just the fit isn't really there. And like, you know, they already have Ronald Jones Jr., who they're saying is their starter.
Well,
And they already have.
Arian said Shady was going to get.
I think you read that wrong. I think Shady said that he's still confident, but I think
I could have sworn I saw Arians was talking about Shady getting a lot of work this year.
I'll double check for you, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I'm checking
sure
right now. I got it.
I'm pretty sure they said Ronald Jones was the starter still. Arians, Rojo, our guy, despite Fournette signing. I think it was Shady was the guy that said he's not worried. That's three-headed monster right there. And I mean, look, that's a good problem to have. But Fournette did improve his hands, catching wise. But that is a strength you have to have if you're playing with Tom Brady.
But that's the thing with Fournette, though. It's like if you're all right, like obviously you want a good pass catching back. Well, also the thing we got to remember is like, yeah, we've seen 20 years of Tom Brady dumping it down to running backs and it working beautifully, right?
Yep.
We've also have not seen Tom Brady with a group of pass catchers this talented since when?
Maybe ever. Like,
literally maybe ever. We're talking about like Randy Moss era was the last time Brady had like these. I like obviously he's had Gronk, but like Gronk's a different type of talent than a Mike Evans, or like a Chris Godwin.
Like on paper, this may be the best receiving core he's ever had.
I think it is. Honestly,
it's possible. Yeah, like. And you talk about Welker and Moss, however you feel about that, but like on paper,
it's also so tough to tell with some of these Patriots wide receivers because like Brady and the system, Belichick and the system elevate them so much.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not the same Brady.
I'll make Brady being assistant quarterback jokes till the day I die. Like you can't ignore the fact that like the system elevated the whole team. The system works perfectly. Well,
the Golden State Warriors system elevates Steph Curry. It doesn't mean it's just
they're totally different, actually.
Anyway.
Last NFL note. Let's just get. Not much to talk. We'll talk plenty of NFL this week. I also don't think we plan on spending an hour talking about like just the Rockets Thunder game.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara contract holdout. Looks like he's gonna be playing week 1. Sean Payton came right out and was like, "Yeah, we like expect him to be part of our offense." I mean, you never know what could happen. But I'd be pretty surprised if Kamara didn't play his full season.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, look, it's tough because if you're the Saints, you don't have to pay him, right? I think he's making like $3 million.
Not only do you not have to, you like can't.
Yeah,
they have no room.
Like, I think if you're the Saints, you do whatever it takes, which is interesting because this day and age, you're like, our running back's that important, right? But Kamara is easily a top 5 running back in the league, and look, Drew Brees has this season left. After that,
and then you don't know,
And even if that is this,
I think Brian, Brees is in the same category as Brady, where it's like, if he wants to come back to the Saints, they're more than likely going to bring him back
for sure.
Like,
I think the thing is that like we noticed it more with Brady this season because he didn't have as good receivers, and that's not me, that's me cutting him some slack, but not saying like he didn't play as well as he has.
It's a mix of like a lack of talent around him and just like simply Brady visibly declining.
Yeah. You don't realize that with Drew Brees because you have the slant god Michael Thomas and you have
it ain't broke, man. If it like that frustrates me to no end when people are like, oh, Michael Thomas isn't that good. I'm like, they throw a ton of slants to him, but like because he wins every single time. Like you think teams don't realize that they're going to run 7, 8, 9? I can't speak. Excuse me. 7, 8, 9. I have absolutely no idea what just came out of my mouth. Any point being, Michael Thomas is the best receiver in the league. Like,
yeah.
Let's talk a little Major League Baseball. I'd be remiss to say that to avoid saying that the Yankees are at 4-1 right now over the Mets. Just check before we start talking about this. Let's talk about this Yankees-Rays incident. I'm gonna let you take the lead here because I'm gonna be a little bit biased.
All I'm gonna say.
What did you make? What did you make of the whole Chapman incident?
All I'm gonna say is like literally congrats on scoring 4 runs on Robert Gesellman, right? Like
congrats on only scoring 1 against Jay Happ.
I'd rather start.
I don't know if Jeremy Goldstein
is
still in the chat right now. But I think he called him Cy Happ, which I thought was pretty solid.
At least Jay Happ's a starter. Like Robert Gesellman is like has not been a starter for like 3 seasons.
Yeah, fair.
Why is confused? What?
Why is Joe Guido bashing Michael Thomas in the Instagram chat right now?
Because he's a Panthers fan. It's NFC South.
Oh, duh. Yeah. Go on. Anyways.
I was confused. Like.
You tend to be confused.
No, I'm talking about Yankees-Rays.
Okay.
I was confused. Like Kevin Cash being suspended 1 game, like being suspended, period. Yes, should have been suspended.
Did openly threaten to throw. If you look at his comments about a stable full of guys who throw 98 as anything other than a threat to throw at the Yankees, I don't know how could you possibly interpret it any other way?
I haven't. I love how you said like you talk and then just like don't let me talk. So mean. Wait your turn. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen like them explaining why Boone was suspended. I mean, it was just one game.
No reason to get suspended.
It was just 1 game, so it's not even worth fighting. But like, there has to be a reason there. Like,
are you done?
Yeah, go ahead, man. You can't. Go ahead. Go.
All right, if you're going to suspend Chapman for 3 games, and say that by suspending him, you're basically saying you thought he threw at him intentionally and threw at his head intentionally. If that's the case, suspend him for a lot more than 3 games. Joe Kelly got 8 initially for throwing a curveball at Carlos Correa and missing by a lot more than Chapman did.
Well, he also was a repeat offender.
That's a good point. True. He was a repeat offender. Mm-hmm. If you think Chapman was throwing at a dude's head, you are suspending him for more than 3 games. Mm-hmm. If you think Boone told Chapman to throw at a guy, you're suspending Boone for more than a game. And then why is Boone shouldn't have gotten suspended in the first place. Like, seriously. Boone did absolutely nothing. And also, do you think Chapman threw at him intentionally?
You made this point.
Threw at his head intentionally.
You made this point. I don't really see the point of, in a 2-run game in the 9th, throwing at someone, especially their head.
Against the team you're chasing. You're like literally your biggest rival right now in a game. I don't know if you can call you can call it a must-win.
I mean, Rob Parker is a Hall of Fame voter. Has been covering baseball for 30 years. He said he didn't think he threw at him either. Like,
to say that you think Chapman threw 101 at Rob Brousseau's head is like you're accusing him of attempted murder. Like,
essentially
101 at a dude's head, helmet or not. Like, you're putting that man in the hospital.
Yeah,
and like I don't think that was Chapman's intention. No, it was not at all his intention to hit him. And like, Chapman has control issues. We know that.
Yeah.
We've seen it. Like, it has always been an issue with Chapman where sometimes he just can't find the zone at all.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard sometimes when
it's just another example. It's just another example of Major League Baseball's whole discipline system being so like backwards and just nonsensical.
I'm not going to disagree with you because it's easy to just like, you don't have to come out and explain things in the first place. And especially if they're 3 games, like
the league,
if it's like a 1-game thing, like you're just like, all right, whatever. They're not going to, I'm saying like, they're not going to fight it, right? Like, you're not going to appeal it.
The thing that kind of sets me off the most is like, you suspend Aaron Boone and Kevin Cash for the same amount of games. Mm-hmm. You'd think that would be for the same type of offense. Mm-hmm. What did Aaron Boone do?
The bench is cleared after, but I don't think neither of them got involved in it, right? Like,
well, I think part of the reason the bench is clear is because Chapman's like thing after he saves, after he like makes a save, is to like stand and like pose, like he strikes a pose. And it's like Fernando Rodney like shot the arrow, or Rodney shot the arrow and untucked. Or no, it was Rafael Soriano would untuck his jersey after a save. Mm-hmm. That was his move. Like, everyone's got their thing. It's an aggressive move, but it's also like Chapman's like 6'4", 230. And like stands there and flexes, like, yeah, it looks aggressive, sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, in what world?
But then can you blame the Rays? Like, you got like you think,
well,
like,
there's plenty of blood.
No way they don't think
plenty of bad blood in the series.
Okay, yes, there's bad blood, but you get, it was 100? It was 100-mile-an-hour pitch?
101.
You get 101 grazing your dome, and then you have a guy just standing there like that. You're like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't blame them either. Like,
Although, well, I'm talking about after the save. Chapman, that guy like, really got misinterpreted in my opinion. Chapman like walking towards the plate after he missed them.
Yeah.
That's literally Chapman walking to get the ball from Gary Sanchez.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
That's what he did. Like, there's literally videos of him doing the same thing after any like wild pitch.
But you get like, again, you almost take a 101 pitch off the dome of a team you have bad blood with. Like, I'm not saying I agree with the suspensions or anything, but you got to at least see the Rays side of things.
I feel like it's the Rays. I like, at the risk of sounding like a massively biased Yankees fan.
That's what you do, but that's okay.
I think it's the Rays acting like a little brother, like looking for like a perceived slight. Honestly, like looking for a fight. Looking for a fight.
I mean, they don't need to fight. They're like 8-2 against you guys this season. Like,
we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. Like,
yeah, I guess. Last topic we're gonna hit on before we go. Tom Seaver passed away yesterday, age of 75, dementia, COVID complications. I mean, it's
best
hard
Met of all time. Like,
yes, like he
unequivocally the best Met of all time.
He is the Mets. Like, it's hard sometimes. You know, when you look at the Yankees, you're like, oh, it's probably Babe Ruth, but like,
yeah.
But at least you can like, Mickey Mantle.
No, it is Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth's like the best baseball player in history. I mean,
but you got someone like Mickey Mantle. You got someone like Derek Jeter, right? Like, it's like
there is no doubt. He's like not even a top 5 Yankee, which is funny. So,
but like you ask any Mets fan, like Tom Seaver is the Mets.
I do.
Right?
When I was looking at these numbers to put in the rundown, I mean. The first was 425 out of 430 Hall of Fame votes was the record at the time. 5-time 20-game winner, 3-time Cy Young. I think the thing that blows my mind the most, 9 straight 200 strikeout seasons, which is the longest streak in league history. And obviously, like, totally different era where guys. I was reading a really funny piece earlier today where he was talking about like his pitch count, quote unquote. Like the pitch count wasn't a thing. I think he said his like unofficial pitch count was 135, but he would just stand for longer if he felt like it. I mean, the type of guy, like one of my dad's personal favorite players. It's like, it's weird because obviously it's like someone you and I don't have like any real personal connection to.
Yeah, I mean, like,
obviously as a Mets fan you do, but like
that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I wasn't alive to watch him pitch, but like, even so, like, you know, growing up, you're becoming a Mets fan. You're like, okay, if like you need to know one player on the Mets, like it's Tom Seaver, and it's not even close, right? Like I like that the Mets finally made it Tom Seaver way leading into Citi Field, and they said they're going to commission a statue for him. I think
you got to.
Yeah, right now the Yankees and Mets are playing right now. I think they like scratched something into the dirt for him.
I know they were hanging a jersey in the dugout.
Okay, that's what it was. I mean, like it's
Yankees got out of the inning too, by the way.
Okay, one of the best pitchers of all time, like 3-time Cy Young. I think his rookie season, he went like 18 of his 20 wins. I think
6th all time in strikeouts.
Yeah, I think they were like complete games, like, which again, pitching is so different now, but like you see the impact it has on the Mets community. Like, I mean, it's,
like the baseball community, man, like as a whole.
Yeah.
And the 69 Miracle Mets are like one of the most iconic teams of all time. Like he was the ace. He literally led them to their first ever World Series.
That's why, like, we always talk about like with the Knicks, right? Like, you know, so if a player were to come to the Knicks, I'm saying like,
oh boy,
like in free agency, like when it was rumored like KD to the Knicks, right? It's like if KD comes here and wins a championship, like he's a legend.
Icon.
He's immortalized. The same way for Tom Seaver. I mean, they hadn't had a winning season before the 69 team. Like,
I mean, when were the Mets founded? Like 63?
It was 10 years before, not even. But like, I'm saying, like,
I don't know if you can make that type of comparison.
No, I'm just talking about a franchise, at least in that moment in the dumps, like not successful, and then someone comes over and
I think there's a difference between like literally a team that's not even been around for a decade.
I know it's not a perfect comparison. I know.
Far from it, in my opinion.
Whatever. A really sad moment. Like, you know, watching, you know, then he had really good seasons with the Reds and then with the White Sox because, of course, the Mets, you know.
Of course. Why would the Mets handle anything correctly? Can't wait to see how they'll botch like honoring Tom Seaver.
So, well, I mean, when I was at one of the games
didn't
where
they
honored,
say? Yeah, weren't you at the game where they honored the guy
I
who
was at
wasn't
one of the
dead?
games. I don't remember who it was in the '69 team. They said he died, and he
Yeah,
was like,
literally-
"Bro, I'm watching the game. I'm alive. Like
I am like,
I am
no, yep,
currently
I'm still
alive."
here.
Yeah.
I can't. I just
Mets are gonna Mets, man.
Mets are going to Mets.
I acquired Todd Frazier at the deadline. Get a reliever who has an ERA of like 4.5.
It's not. It's probably better than half of Mets bullpen right now.
Oh, God,
I mean, am I wrong?
man. No. What a nightmare, man. What an absolute nightmare.
It's just so funny because like you're a Spurs fan, you're a Pats fan, and then you're also a Mets fan.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you call me a front runner. I dare you. I root for the Mets. Like, why would I root for the Mets if I was a
What do you
front
mean
runner?
you dare me to call you a front runner? As if it's never been said before.
That's what I'm saying. It say right now. Like, how am I a front runner if I root for the Mets? Like,
I think
tell
it's
me.
different than I think it's. I don't know if it's more front running or bandwagoning.
Okay, but like bandwagoning isn't a crime, right? Like
It's a crime. Let's be real here. Bandwagoning
okay,
is a
no, but there's
felony.
a difference. There's a difference, right? And hear me out.
Between,
Hear me out.
I guess this is what we're closing the show with.
Yeah, this is what we'll close the show with: is me defending myself for like 78th millionth time. Like I'm a Spurs fan because my parents are Argentinian, because my brother is Argentinian, and Manu Ginobili is Argentinian.
Show him the arm. Show him the arm.
Fabrizio Berto is Argentinian, right? I have a good reason for that. Like
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
that's why I'm a Spurs fan. I'm a Patriots fan because I was at my cousin's house. We were watching a game that they won. I couldn't tell you what game it was. I looked at their jerseys and I was like, those are sick jerseys. This team is good. I like this team now, right? But
So this team is good. I like this team.
But
that literally like textbook.
if I was a front runner or a bandwagon fan, I would not be a Patriots fan anymore. Because what kind of bandwagon fan stays with a team that loses in the Super Bowl multiple times?
Who'd
right?
you lose to?
What?
Who'd you lose to?
Doesn't matter. I would have been a 49ers
I'll have
fan.
to ask Stratton who he lost to.
I would have been
Crazy.
a 49ers fan, or I would have been a Ravens fan, or I would have been a Seahawks fan. Like, that would have been a bandwagon. Like, and like, if you start off with a team that's winning and then you immediately stop cheering for them when they lose.
Well, look, okay, I'll give you.
No, let me finish. That's a sin. If you start with a team that's winning, then they don't win a Super Bowl, and you stay with them, like.
Look, I'll give you credit for sticking with the Pats. Like, I will give you credit for that. I will say you did just say you chose the Pats because they were good.
I was like 8 years old, dude. Like, I was 8 years old, like watching my first football game of all time. Like, my first football game ever. Like, what's wrong with that? Like,
Plenty.
like you can't discredit me for what.
And see, the thing is, you know
doing.
how awful bandwagon is. You know it's a felony.
Yeah, but again, you have to be a bandwagon if you change. That's the whole point of a bandwagon.
I'm just saying, it sounds like a very prepared defense.
Because this is not the first time I have to do it with you either. Like, this is a daily. I do this on a daily basis. Like,
because you know you're a bandwagon fan.
Because I have to defend my honor. We gotta head out of here. I got to defend my honor. All right, that's it for episode 7. Episode 8. Episode 8 was a good ride. If you're watching us on Instagram at Second Floor Sports, thank you. You can catch a replay of the show, or if you didn't get to watch the whole thing, on our YouTube. That's our show name. Or on Spotify. Please check us out.
Spotify and Anchor.
Yeah,
Second
or
Floor
Anchor.
Sports.
Yep.
Check us out, seriously.
Run up that play. Give us a follow. And
tell
let
a friend,
us know what you think.
honestly. Tell a friend. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Please. Let us know what you think. You know, if there's anything you don't like that we're doing, we'll listen to it, and then we won't take
we won't change
account.
a damn thing.
We have a mailbox each week. DM us any questions you want us to answer. Like our bio says, we promise we're going to get to your questions. Can't promise we're going to stay on.
I feel like we did have we had did we even have a mailbag this week?
Yeah, we had a mailbag. It was my
Jimmy
brother.
C.
It was my brother
Yeah.
who runs my mom's rim repair factory's Instagram page, trying to promote their low prices. So check out Jimmy C Wheel Factory on Instagram if you got to get your rims redone. I think that's it. I think we should have.
Let's call it a day. I need to make some food.
For Ben, Carlton, I'm Matias Weilmann. Thanks for listening to Second Floor Sports. We will talk to you next week.
So long.